The frost-covered grass crunched beneath Mara's boots as she crept toward the human carpenter's chicken coop, her stomach twisting with hunger and shame in equal measure. She had watched the cottage from the forest edge for 3 nights now, timing the moments when the lamplight inside finally dimmed and the world fell silent. The man who lived there was alone, she had observed, which made him an easier target than the families in the nearby village. Mara's children had not eaten properly in 5 days, not since the clan had cast her out for refusing to participate in their raid on the human settlement 2 valleys over. She had argued that there were children living there, that attacking them would make the clan no better than the monsters humans believed them to be. Her brother, the war chief, had given her a choice: leave willingly or be executed for cowardice. So she had taken her 2 children and fled into the wilderness, surviving on roots and whatever small game she could catch without fire. But winter was approaching fast, and her daughter Kessa, only 4 years old, had developed a rattling cough that kept Mara awake through the cold nights. Her son Dren, at 7, tried to be brave, but she saw how his hands shook from hunger when he thought she was not looking. The chicken coop was a simple structure of wooden slats and chicken wire, sturdy but not locked. Mara's fingers trembled as she lifted the latch, wincing at the small creak it made. Inside, she could smell the warm, musty scent of sleeping hens. Her orc eyes, adapted for night hunting, could see them clearly plump birds roosting on their perches, oblivious to the intruder. She reached carefully beneath the first hen, feeling for eggs. The bird shifted but did not wake. Her fingers closed around 2 warm eggs, and she tucked them gently into the leather pouch at her waist. She moved to the next nest, then the next, taking only a few from each so that the loss might not be immediately noticed. Guilt gnawed at her insides. She was a thief now, stealing from someone who had done her no harm. But what choice did she have? Her children needed food. "I count 6 eggs missing," a male voice said from behind her, calm and quiet in the darkness. Mara spun around, her heart hammering against her ribs. A man stood silhouetted in the doorway of the coop, holding a lantern that cast warm light across his face. He was tall for a human, with broad shoulders that spoke of years working with his hands. His hair was dark brown, tousled from sleep, and his eyes, a clear gray-blue even in the lamplight, regarded her without the fear or hatred she had learned to expect from humans. Her hand instinctively went to the small knife at her belt, though she had no intention of using it. She was a thief, yes, but not a murderer. "I was not going to take more," she said, lifting her chin despite the shame burning in her chest. Her voice came out rougher than she intended, her orcish accent making the words sound harsh. "Just enough for my children to eat." The man's expression shifted slightly, something she could not quite read flickering across his features. He looked her over her worn leather clothing, the mud on her boots, the desperate thinness that had started to show in her face after days of giving most of her meager food to Dren and Kessa. "You have children with you?" he asked. "Out here in the cold?" "Hidden," she admitted, then cursed herself for revealing even that much. But something about his tone made her answer honestly. "In the forest. They are hungry. I would not steal if there was another way." He was silent for a long moment, studying her face. Mara forced herself to meet his gaze, though every instinct screamed at her to run. If he raised an alarm, if other humans came, she would be killed and her children left alone in the wilderness. "How old are they?" he asked. The question surprised her. "My daughter is 4. My son is 7. The man exhaled slowly, his breath misting in the cold night air. Then he did something that shocked Mara to her core. He stepped aside from the doorway. "Bring your kids inside," he said simply. Mara stared at him, certain she had misheard. "What?" "Your children," he repeated, gesturing toward the forest. "Bring them inside the house. It is too cold for little ones to be sleeping outdoors, and if your daughter has that cough I can hear in your voice when you speak about her, she needs warmth and proper food." "You would invite an orc into your home?" Mara's voice came out sharper than she intended, edged with disbelief and suspicion. "Why? What do you want in return?" The man's jaw tightened slightly. "I do not want anything except to know that there are not children freezing in the forest while I sleep in a warm bed. My name is Benjamin Driscoll. I am a carpenter, not a soldier or a jailer. If you need food, I will give it to you. But those eggs you have stolen would be better cooked than eaten raw." Mara's mind raced, trying to find the trap in his words. Humans did not help orcs. Humans killed orcs or drove them away, or at best ignored them. They certainly did not offer shelter and cooked food. "I do not understand," she said finally. "Neither do I entirely," Benjamin admitted, a wry smile touching his lips. "But I heard you say you would not steal if there was another way. That tells me you are a mother doing what she must, not a raider looking for easy prey. So I am offering you another way, at least for tonight." Mara's throat tightened. She wanted to accept, desperately wanted to bring Kessa and Dren into warmth and safety, even if only for one night. But years of learning that humans could not be trusted warred with the maternal instinct that demanded she protect her children. "If this is a trick," she said slowly, "if you mean harm to my children, I will fight you with everything I have." "Fair enough," Benjamin said evenly. "And if you mean harm to me, I imagine you will find I am not as easy to kill as I look. But I do not think either of us wants violence tonight. Am I right?" After a long moment, Mara nodded. "You are right. Then go get your children. I will put the kettle on for tea." Mara moved past him carefully, keeping distance between them, and hurried into the forest. Her mind spun with confusion and cautious hope as she made her way back to the small cave where she had left Dren and Kessa. Her son was awake, sitting with his back against the stone wall and his arms wrapped around his sleeping sister. "Mama," he whispered as she approached. "Did you get food?" "Better," she said, kneeling beside them. "I found shelter, but Dren, I need you to listen carefully. The human who owns the cottage has invited us inside. He says he wants to help." Dren's eyes widened with alarm. "Humans kill orcs, Mama. Uncle Thorak always said." "I know what your uncle said," Mara interrupted gently, "but we do not have many choices right now. This human, Benjamin, he seems different, kind even. I do not fully trust him yet, but I think he means what he says about helping us. What if he is lying? Then we leave. But Kessa needs warmth, Dren. Her cough is getting worse." Dren looked down at his sister, his young face creasing with worry. Finally, he nodded. "All right, but I will protect her if he tries anything." "I know you will," Mara said, touching his cheek gently. "You are brave and strong. Now help me wake her." Kessa whimpered as Mara lifted her, and the sound of her daughter's labored breathing made the decision feel even more right. They could not survive many more nights in the cold. The walk back to the cottage felt longer than it had taken to reach the cave. Mara carried Kessa while Dren walked close beside her, his hand on the small wooden practice knife he had carved himself. When they emerged from the tree line, Benjamin was standing on the porch, the door open behind him and warm light spilling out into the darkness. He descended the steps slowly as they approached, moving carefully as if afraid to startle them. His gaze went to Kessa first, and Mara saw genuine concern cross his face. "She is burning up with fever," he said quietly. "The cough started 3 days ago," Mara admitted. "It has gotten worse." "Bring her inside quickly then. I have medicine that might help." The interior of the cottage was simple but well made, everything speaking of the skill of the carpenter who lived there. The main room served as both living space and workshop, with a sturdy table, chairs, and shelves lined with tools and half-finished projects. A fire burned in the stone hearth, filling the space with blessed warmth. Mara felt Kessa relax slightly in her arms as the heat enveloped them. "Set her on the bed there," Benjamin said, gesturing to a low cot against one wall. "I will get the medicine and some water." Mara laid Kessa down gently, brushing the dark hair back from her daughter's feverish face. Dren pressed close to her side, his eyes tracking Benjamin's every movement with suspicion. Benjamin returned with a clay jar and a cup of water. "This is willow bark tea," he explained. "It will help with the fever. Can she drink?" "Yes," Mara said, helping Kessa sit up slightly. The little girl's eyes fluttered open, confusion and fear crossing her face as she registered the unfamiliar surroundings. "It is all right, little one," Benjamin said softly, crouching down so he was at her eye level rather than looming over her. "My name is Benjamin. You are safe here. This medicine will help you feel better." Kessa looked to her mother, and Mara nodded encouragingly. The little girl took a tentative sip, then made a face at the bitter taste. "I know, it tastes terrible," Benjamin said with a gentle smile. "But if you drink it all, I will make you porridge with honey. Does that sound fair?" Kessa nodded and drank the rest, though she grimaced with every swallow. Benjamin stood and moved to the hearth, where he began preparing food. Mara watched him work, still half expecting him to turn on them, to reveal this kindness as some elaborate trick. But he simply cooked, humming quietly to himself as he stirred a pot of porridge and set out bread and cheese. "When did they last eat a proper meal?" he asked without turning around. "5 days ago," Mara admitted, "before we left the clan." "Left or were forced out," Mara stiffened. "Does it matter?" "Not particularly," Benjamin said. "I was only making conversation, though I imagine there is a story there." "There is, but it is not one I wish to tell tonight." "Fair enough." They lapsed into silence, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the sound of Benjamin's cooking. Dren remained tense at Mara's side, but she noticed how his eyes kept drifting to the food being prepared, hunger overriding caution. When Benjamin finally set bowls of porridge on the table, along with bread, cheese, and strips of salted meat, Mara had to restrain herself from falling on the food like a starving animal. Dren showed no such restraint, grabbing a piece of bread and stuffing it in his mouth. "Dren," Mara said sharply. "Manners." Her son looked abashed, but Benjamin waved a hand. "Let him eat. There is plenty, and I imagine manners are the last thing on his mind right now." Mara helped Kessa eat small bites of porridge with honey, relieved to see some color returning to her daughter's cheeks as warmth and food worked their magic. She herself ate more slowly, trying to maintain some dignity even as her stomach cramped with hunger. Benjamin sat across from them, eating his own modest portion and watching them with that same quiet, thoughtful expression. Mara found herself studying him in return. He was perhaps 30 years old, with the calloused hands and strong build of a man who worked with wood and tools all day. His face was kind, she decided, with laugh lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often. There was a sadness there too, something old and worn, though she could not guess its source. "Thank you," she said finally, the words feeling strange on her tongue. "For this, for your kindness." "You are welcome," Benjamin replied simply. "Why are you doing this?" The question burst out of her before she could stop it. "You do not know us. We are orcs. Your people and mine are enemies." Benjamin was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. "About 3 years ago, I lost my wife and our unborn child to a fever. I was away, working on a barn for a farmer 2 days' ride from here. By the time I got the message and returned home, she was already gone. I spent a long time angry after that." Angry at myself for not being there, angry at God for taking them, angry at the whole world. He paused, taking a sip of water before continuing. A wise old woman in the village finally told me that I could let that anger eat me alive, or I could honor my wife's memory by being the kind of person she believed I was. My Sarah had the biggest heart of anyone I ever knew. She never could stand seeing anyone suffer, human or otherwise. Once she nursed an injured fox back to health, kept it in a crate in our kitchen for weeks, drove me half mad with the smell, but she would not be swayed. Mara saw the ghost of a smile cross his face at the memory. So when I saw you in the coop tonight, I tried to think what Sarah would have done. And I knew she would have invited you in, would have insisted on feeding your children, probably would have scolded me if I had done anything less. I cannot bring her back, cannot change what happened. But I can try to be the man she saw in me. Does that make sense? Yes, Mara said softly, her chest tight with unexpected emotion. That makes sense. Your Sarah sounds like she was a good woman. She was the best, Benjamin agreed. But that is enough sad talk for one night. You all look exhausted. The bed is yours. I can sleep in the workshop. We cannot take your bed, Mara protested. You can and you will. It is big enough for all three of you, and I have slept on worse than a pile of wood shavings. Consider it payment for the eggs you stole. Despite everything, Mara felt a smile tug at her lips. You have a strange sense of fair trade, Carpenter. So I have been told. Now get some rest. We can figure out everything else in the morning. Mara wanted to argue further, but exhaustion was pulling at her like a physical weight. Kessa had already fallen back asleep, and Dren was swaying where he sat, his eyes drooping despite his efforts to stay alert and watchful. Just for tonight, she said. Tomorrow we will leave and not trouble you further. We will see, Benjamin said, but he did not push the matter. Mara carried Kessa to the bed while Dren followed, climbing under the thick wool blankets with a sigh of relief. The mattress was stuffed with straw and surprisingly comfortable, nothing like the hard ground they had been sleeping on. Mara lay down between her children, pulling them close, and felt tears prick her eyes as Kessa curled into her warmth, and Dren rested his head on her shoulder. Across the room, Benjamin was banking the fire and tidying the table. Mara watched him move through slitted eyes, still half expecting betrayal, but he simply blew out most of the lamps, took a blanket from a chest, and disappeared into the adjoining workshop without another word. For the first time in days, Mara allowed herself to truly relax. The bed was warm, her children were fed and safe, and the human who had given them shelter had asked for nothing in return. It felt like a dream, too good to be real. But as sleep finally claimed her, she decided that even if it was just for one night, she would accept this gift and be grateful for it. She woke to the smell of cooking bacon and the sound of Dren's voice asking questions. Pale morning light filtered through the window, and Mara sat up quickly, momentarily disoriented. Kessa still slept beside her, but her son was sitting at the table with Benjamin, watching the carpenter fry bacon over the fire. Mama is awake, Dren announced, and Benjamin turned to give her a nod of greeting. Good morning. Your daughter is still sleeping, but her fever seems to have broken. That is a good sign. Mara checked Kessa's forehead and found it cool to the touch, relief flooding through her. Thank you. The medicine helped. Willow bark is useful stuff. I keep it on hand for aches and fevers. Are you hungry? Yes, Mara admitted, rising from the bed and moving to the table. She felt awkward in the morning light, intensely aware that they had imposed on this man's hospitality and were still here, eating his food. Benjamin served breakfast bacon, eggs from his apparently well-stocked coop, and more bread with butter. Dren ate with enthusiasm, his suspicion from the night before tempered by food and sleep. I should pay you for all of this, Mara said as she ate. Once I find work, I can bring you coin or goods to replace what we have taken. Where exactly are you planning to find work? Benjamin asked mildly. The village will not hire an orc, and I doubt you can go back to your clan. I will find a way, Mara said, though she had no idea how. Or, Benjamin said slowly, as if the idea was just occurring to him, you could stay here for a while. I could use help around the property. The garden needs to be prepared for winter. Firewood needs to be split and stacked. There are repairs to the chicken coop that I have been putting off. In exchange for work, I can provide food and shelter until you figure out your next step. Mara stared at him. You cannot be serious. Why not? You need a place to stay. I need help that I do not have time to do myself because I am busy with carpentry orders. It would be a fair trade. People will talk. They will say you are harboring orcs. Let them talk. My nearest neighbor is half a mile away, and I do not much care for gossip anyway. They could come after us, drive us out, hurt you for helping us. They could, Benjamin acknowledged, but I do not think they will. Most folks around here are too busy with their own lives to worry much about mine, and if they do come causing trouble, well, I can be stubborn when I need to be. Mara shook her head, overwhelmed by his casual generosity. I do not understand you, Benjamin Driscoll. What you are offering, it goes against everything I have learned about humans. Maybe you learned wrong, he said simply. Or maybe you just met the wrong humans before. Uncle Thorax said all humans are the same, Dren said quietly. He said they only understand violence and that showing them mercy is weakness. Benjamin looked at the boy thoughtfully. Your uncle sounds like he has been hurt badly by humans. I am sorry for that. But hating a whole people because some of them did wrong, that is how wars start and never end. There are good orcs and bad orcs, just like there are good humans and bad humans. Seems to me that deciding someone is your enemy before you even know them is a pretty good way to make sure you will always have enemies. That is what Mama said, Dren admitted. She said attacking the human village was wrong because there were children there. Uncle Thorak called her a coward and said we had to leave. Your mama is no coward, Benjamin said firmly. It takes more courage to stand against your own people for what is right than it does to go along with something you know is wrong. You should be proud of her. Dren looked at Mara, and she saw the pride in his eyes along with the question. She took a deep breath. If we stay, she said carefully, it would only be until I can find somewhere else for us to go. Somewhere safer, away from human lands and orc territories both. Maybe far to the north, where I have heard there are settlements of mixed peoples. That is a long journey to undertake before winter, Benjamin pointed out. But if that is your plan, then staying here through the cold months makes sense. You can work, save up supplies, and leave in the spring when travel is easier and your daughter is stronger. It was a logical plan. More than that, it was a lifeline, and Mara would be a fool to refuse it out of pride or fear. All right, she said. We will stay and work through the winter. But I want to be clear, we will earn our keep. I will not be a burden or a charity case. Fair enough, Benjamin said, extending his hand across the table. Partners, then, for the winter. Mara looked at his outstretched hand for a moment before taking it. His grip was firm and warm, his palm calloused from years of working with wood. The handshake felt like a covenant, an agreement entered into freely by both parties. Partners, she agreed. The first few days were an adjustment. Mara threw herself into work with a determination that seemed to amuse Benjamin. She split firewood until her arms ached, repaired the chicken coop fence, and began the work of preparing the garden beds for winter planting. Dren helped where he could, and Kessa, recovering quickly from her fever, toddled around the yard gathering eggs and talking to the chickens in her high, sweet voice. Benjamin continued his carpentry work, filling orders for the village and nearby farms. Mara watched him work sometimes when she thought he was not paying attention, fascinated by the skill with which he shaped wood into useful and beautiful things. He was making a cradle for a young couple expecting their first child, and the care he took with every joint and curve spoke of a man who understood that his work would become part of people's lives, part of their important moments. They fell into a routine. Mara woke early to start the fire and make breakfast while Benjamin fed the chickens and milked the goat he kept in a small shed behind the house. Dren helped with morning chores, and Kessa, still too young to be much use, provided entertainment with her endless questions and observations. During the day, they each focused on their work, coming together at midday for a simple lunch. Evenings were spent around the table, sharing a meal and conversation before Mara settled the children in the bed, and Benjamin retired to the workshop where he slept. It was, Mara reflected about a week into their arrangement, the most domestic and peaceful her life had been in years. Even when she had been with the clan, there had always been an edge of violence, a constant readiness for battle. Orc life was hard and often brutal, shaped by the need to survive in a world that saw them as monsters. But here, in this small cottage with this strange, kind human, she could breathe. She could let her guard down just a little. "You are smiling," Benjamin observed one afternoon as they worked together to stack firewood along the side of the house. "That is the first time I have seen that." Mara had not realized she was smiling. "I was just thinking that this is nice. The work, the routine, it is simple but good." "Simple and good are underrated," Benjamin said. "People always want more excitement, more adventure, more drama, but there is something to be said for a quiet life with honest work and good company." "Is that why you became a carpenter? For the quiet life?" "Partly. My father was a carpenter and his father before him. I grew up knowing the trade, but I also like making things that last, things that people will use and pass down. There is a satisfaction in that." "I understand," Mara said. "Among my people I was a scout and hunter. I liked the solitude of it, the skill required. My brother always wanted me to be a warrior, to lead raids and win glory in battle, but that was never what I wanted." "What did you want?" Mara was quiet for a moment, considering the question. "I wanted to raise my children in peace. To teach them that there is more to life than fighting and hating. To show them that orcs can be more than what humans believe us to be." "That is a worthy goal," Benjamin said softly. They worked in companionable silence for a while, the autumn sun warm on their backs despite the chill in the air. Mara found herself intensely aware of Benjamin's presence beside her, the easy way they moved around each other, anticipating without words who would hand off the next log or move to the next section of the woodpile. "Benjamin," she said suddenly, "why are you not afraid of me?" He paused, a log in his hands, and looked at her thoughtfully. "Should I be? Most humans would be. I am stronger than you, trained to fight. I could hurt you if I wanted to." "You could," he agreed, "but you would not. I see how gentle you are with your children, how carefully you handle things around the house. You have had plenty of opportunities to rob me or worse, and instead you have fixed my fences and chopped enough wood to last half the winter. I think I am safe enough." "You put a lot of faith in a stranger." "So did you," Benjamin pointed out. "You brought your children into my home based on nothing but a gut feeling that I was not going to hurt you. We both took a risk. It worked out." Mara had no response to that, so she simply nodded and went back to work. But his words stayed with her, warm and comforting in a way she did not fully understand. As the days turned into weeks, the dynamic in the household shifted in subtle ways. Kessa began calling Benjamin Mr. Ben, and would run to show him interesting rocks or particularly pretty leaves she found in the yard. Dren, initially wary, started asking Benjamin to teach him carpentry, and the two of them would spend hours in the workshop while Benjamin patiently showed the boy how to measure and cut and sand. Mara found herself watching Benjamin more and more, noticing small things about him. The way he always made sure there was enough food on everyone's plate before serving himself. The gentle patience he showed with Kessa's endless questions. The quiet pride in his eyes when Dren successfully completed a small wooden box under his guidance. The sadness that sometimes crossed his face when he thought no one was looking, usually in the evenings when the lamplight and shadows played across the room in a certain way. She was attracted to him. The realization came to her one morning as she watched him split wood, his muscles moving beneath his shirt, his breath misting in the cold air. It was not just physical attraction, though she could not deny the appeal of his strong, capable body. It was the kindness in him, the quiet strength, the way he made her feel safe in a way she had never felt before. The thought terrified her. She was an orc, he was human. The gulf between them was vast, uncrossable. Even if he felt something for her in return which she had no reason to believe he did, there was no future in it. When spring came, she would take her children and go north, and Benjamin would return to his quiet life without them. But her heart, it seemed, had not received that message. It beat faster when he smiled at her. It ached when he spoke of his lost wife with such devotion. It soared when he praised her work or thanked her for a good meal. She was falling in love with Benjamin Driscoll, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. One evening in late autumn, after the children had gone to sleep, Mara and Benjamin sat by the fire, she mending a tear in Dren's shirt and he sketching out plans for a chest someone had commissioned. The silence between them was comfortable, familiar in a way that spoke of time spent together. "Mara," Benjamin said quietly, not looking up from his work. "Can I ask you something personal?" "You can ask," she said. "I may not answer." "Fair enough. What happened to your children's father?" Mara's hands stilled on the mending. She had known the question would come eventually, but it still caught her off guard. "He died in battle when Kessa was still an infant. He was a warrior in the clan, brave and strong. He believed in the old ways, improving orcish strength through combat. Did you love him?" "I respected him," Mara said carefully. "He was the father of my children and he provided for us. But love, I am not sure we ever had that. Our marriage was arranged by the clan elders. It was practical, not romantic." "That sounds lonely." "It was," Mara admitted, "but it was what I knew." Orcish culture does not put much value on romance or affection between mates. We focus on survival, on strength. Love is seen as a weakness, a distraction. "That is sad," Benjamin said. "Love is what makes life worth living. At least, that is what I have always believed." "You had that with your Sarah." "I did. I know how lucky I was." They fell quiet again, but the silence felt heavier now, weighted with unspoken things. Mara forced herself to focus on her mending, though her mind was far from the task. "Can I ask you something now?" she said. "Of course." "Do you ever think about marrying again? Finding someone to share your life with?" Benjamin was quiet for a long moment. "Sometimes. But it would have to be someone special, someone I could love the way I loved Sarah. I would not settle for less than that, and I would not dishonor her memory by marrying out of loneliness or convenience." "That is honorable," Mara said, ignoring the small pang of disappointment in her chest. "What about you?" Benjamin asked. "Would you marry again?" "I have not thought much about it. After my husband died, I was focused on raising Dren and Kessa. And now, after leaving the clan, I am just trying to survive and build a new life for us. Romance seems like a luxury I cannot afford." "Maybe," Benjamin said. Or maybe it is something you deserve, but have never let yourself want. The words hung in the air between them, and Mara felt her heart begin to race. Was he saying what she thought he was saying? Or was she reading too much into a simple observation? Before she could respond, Kessa cried out in her sleep, a small sound of distress. Mara immediately set aside her mending and went to the bed, smoothing her daughter's hair and murmuring soothing words until the little girl settled back into peaceful sleep. When she turned back, Benjamin had returned to his sketching. The moment apparently passed. Mara resumed her own work, but her mind churned with questions and possibilities she did not dare voice. The first snow came in early winter, transforming the world into a landscape of white silence. Mara had seen snow before, but there was something magical about it here, blanketing the cottage and the forest in pristine beauty. Kessa was ecstatic, running outside to catch snowflakes on her tongue while Dren helped Benjamin build a larger shelter for the chickens to protect them from the cold. With the deep cold came a new set of challenges. The work became harder, the days shorter, and they all spent more time inside the cottage, huddled around the fire. Mara found herself acutely aware of every interaction with Benjamin in the close quarters. The brush of his hand when passing a bowl at dinner. The way their eyes would meet across the room and hold for just a moment too long. The sound of his breathing at night from the workshop, so close and yet impossibly far away. She knew she should guard her heart more carefully. She knew she was setting herself up for pain, but she could not seem to help it. One particularly bitter night, a storm rolled in with howling winds and heavy snow. The cottage shook with the force of it, and even with the fire blazing, cold air seeped through every crack. Mara had just gotten the children settled when Benjamin appeared from the workshop, shivering. "It is too cold to sleep in there tonight," he said. "The wind is coming straight through the walls. Would you mind if I slept by the fire?" "Of course not," Mara said. "This is your house. You should not have to freeze in the workshop." Benjamin dragged his blanket to the hearth and settled on the floor near the fire. Mara tried to sleep, but she was too aware of him lying just a few feet away. The children had both climbed into the bed with her for warmth. Kessa curled against her side and Dren pressed against her back, but Mara herself lay awake, listening to the storm and thinking too much. "Mara," Benjamin's voice came softly from the darkness. "Are you awake?" "Yes," she whispered back. "I cannot sleep either. Want to sit by the fire for a while." Mara carefully extricated herself from the tangle of children and joined Benjamin by the hearth. He had stoked the fire higher, and the warmth was welcome after the chill of the bed. "This reminds me of when I was a boy," Benjamin said, staring into the flames. "My father and I would sometimes get caught out in storms when we were delivering furniture to distant farms. We would find shelter wherever we could, barns, caves, once even a hollowed-out tree. He would build a fire and tell me stories until the storm passed." "What kind of stories?" "Adventures, mostly. Heroes and quests and magical creatures. He had a gift for storytelling. I think he could have been a bard if he had not been so devoted to carpentry." "My mother told stories too," Mara said, surprised by the memory surfacing. "Before she died when I was very young. She told tales of the old days when orcs and humans lived in peace and there was no hatred between our peoples." "You think that was ever true? Or just wishful thinking?" "I do not know, but I want to believe it was true once, and if it was true before, maybe it could be true again." Benjamin turned to look at her, his face illuminated by firelight. "You are an optimist, Mara. I would not have guessed that when I first met you." "I am a mother," Mara said. "I have to believe in a better future, or what is the point of raising children?" "Fair point." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Can I tell you something?" "Yes." "I am glad you tried to steal my eggs that night. I know that sounds strange, but it is true." These past few weeks, having you and the children here, it has made this house feel alive again. I did not realize how lonely I had been until I was not lonely anymore." Mara's breath caught. "I am glad too," she said softly. "For all of it. You saved us, Benjamin. We would not have survived the winter without your help. You would have found a way. You are strong and resourceful. Maybe, but I am grateful I did not have to find out." They sat in silence for a while, watching the fire dance. Then Benjamin said, very quietly, "Mara, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out before you respond." Mara's heart began to pound. "All right. I am aware that this is complicated. I am aware of all the reasons this is a bad idea. But I cannot keep pretending I do not feel what I feel." He turned to face her fully, his gray-blue eyes intense in the firelight. "I am falling in love with you. Maybe I have been falling since that first night when you stood in my chicken coop looking fierce and terrified and determined all at once. I know we come from different worlds. I know people would condemn us for even considering this. But I cannot help how I feel, and I needed you to know." Mara stared at him, her mind reeling. She had hoped in the secret places of her heart that he might feel something for her, but to hear him say it so plainly, so honestly, was overwhelming. "Benjamin," she began, but he held up a hand. "You do not have to say anything right now. I just needed to be honest with you. If you do not feel the same way, we can pretend this conversation never happened and go on as we have been. I will not make things awkward or uncomfortable. I just could not keep silent anymore." "Stop talking," Mara said, and before she could lose her courage, she leaned forward and kissed him. For a moment, Benjamin froze in surprise. Then his arms came around her, pulling her close as he returned the kiss with a passion that took her breath away. His lips were soft and warm, and he tasted like the mint tea he had drunk before bed. Mara's hands found his hair, threading through the thick strands as the kiss deepened. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Benjamin rested his forehead against hers. "So I take it you feel the same way?" he asked, a smile in his voice. "You are an idiot if you could not tell," Mara said, but there was no heat in her words. "I have been in love with you for weeks. I just thought it was impossible that you could never feel that way about an orc." "I do not care that you are an orc," Benjamin said fiercely. "I care that you are kind and brave and strong. I care that you make me laugh and that you have brought light back into my life. The rest is just details. Other people will not see it that way." "Then other people can mind their own business." Mara laughed, a sound of pure joy that surprised her. "You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is. Maybe we are the ones making it complicated." He pulled back slightly, his expression turning serious. "Mara, I know you were planning to leave in the spring, and if that is still what you want, I will not try to stop you, but I am asking you to consider staying. Not just through the winter, but permanently. Make a life here with me. Let me be a father to Dren and Kessa and a husband to you if you will have me." "You are proposing?" Mara asked, stunned. "I am. I know it is fast, I know it is crazy, but when you know, you know. And I know I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Mara's throat tightened with emotion. "My children, I already love them," Benjamin said simply. "Dren is a good boy with a quick mind and a brave heart. Kessa is sunshine in human form. They are part of you, and I want all of you in my life." Tears spilled down Mara's cheeks, and she did not try to stop them. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you. I will stay." Benjamin pulled her into his arms again, holding her tightly as if afraid she might disappear. Mara buried her face in his shoulder, overwhelmed by the enormity of what they were promising each other. "People will talk," she said, her voice muffled against his shirt. "They will say terrible things. They might even try to drive us apart." "Let them try," Benjamin said. I did not survive losing Sarah just to be too cowardly to fight for a second chance at love. If people have a problem with us, they can take it up with me. Mara pulled back to look at him, seeing the determination in his face. You are sure about this, really sure? I have never been more sure of anything. Then I am sure too. They kissed again, softer this time, a gentle affirmation of the vows they had just made. When they finally parted, Mara felt lighter than she had in years, as if some great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. We should probably get some sleep, Benjamin said reluctantly. Morning will come early. Stay here, Mara said impulsively. By the fire, we can keep each other warm. Benjamin smiled and retrieved his blanket, spreading it near the hearth. They lay down together, Mara's back against Benjamin's chest and his arms wrapped around her. The fire crackled softly, and outside the storm continued to rage, but inside the cottage all was warmth and peace. Benjamin, Mara murmured as sleep began to claim her. Thank you for being brave enough to love me. Thank you for being brave enough to steal my eggs. Mara laughed softly and let herself drift off, safe in the arms of the man she loved. Morning brought clear skies and a world transformed by snow. Mara woke to find Kessa standing over her and Benjamin, her small face scrunched in confusion. Mama, why are you sleeping with Mr. Ben? Mara sat up quickly, heat flooding her face. Benjamin, already awake, smiled at Kessa. Your mama and I were keeping each other warm during the storm, little one. The workshop was too cold for me last night. Oh, Kessa said, apparently satisfied with this explanation. Can I go play in the snow? After breakfast, Mara said. Help me wake your brother. As Kessa ran off, Benjamin caught Mara's hand and squeezed it. We should tell them today, the children. They deserve to know what is happening. You are right. After breakfast, we will sit down with them together. The meal was a simple affair of porridge and toasted bread, but Mara barely tasted it, her mind occupied with how to explain to her children that their lives were about to change again. Dren seemed to sense something was different, his sharp eyes moving between his mother and Benjamin with curiosity. When the meal was cleared away, Benjamin cleared his throat. Dren, Kessa, your mother and I need to talk to you about something important. Both children looked up attentively. Mara took a deep breath. Mr. Benjamin has asked me to marry him, she said, and I have said yes. That means we are going to stay here permanently and Benjamin will become part of our family. Kessa's face lit up with delight. Does that mean Mr. Ben will be our papa? Benjamin looked to Mara, who nodded encouragingly. If you want me to be, he said to the children, I would be honored to be your father, but I will never try to replace your birth father. I know he was a brave man who loved you. I do not remember him very much, Kessa admitted. But I like you, Mr. Ben. You are nice and you tell good stories. What about you, Dren? Mara asked gently. How do you feel about this? Her son was quiet for a long moment, his young face serious. Finally, he said, You love him, Mama, really love him. I do, Mara said honestly. And you love Mama? Dren asked Benjamin. With all my heart, Benjamin replied. And you will not hurt her or send us away. Never. You are all part of my family now, and family takes care of each other. Dren nodded slowly. Then I think it is good. You make Mama smile more than I have ever seen. And you have been teaching me carpentry and treating us with kindness. I think my father would want Mama to be happy. Mara felt tears well up again and pulled her son into a fierce hug. You are so wise for one so young, she whispered. So we get to stay forever? Kessa asked, bouncing with excitement. And the chickens will be our chickens too? Yes, little one, Benjamin said with a laugh. The chickens are now your chickens too. Kessa let out a whoop of joy and ran to hug Benjamin, who caught her easily and swung her up in his arms. Dren smiled, a genuine expression of happiness that transformed his usually serious face, and Mara felt her heart swell with love for all of them. The winter passed in a blur of work and joy. Benjamin taught Mara more about carpentry, and she proved to have a natural talent for it. Together they built new shelves for the cottage, a larger table to accommodate their growing family, and toys for Kessa. Dren continued his carpentry lessons, and showed such promise that Benjamin began to talk about taking him on as a proper apprentice when he was older. They were not without challenges. One day in midwinter, a neighbor stopped by to commission a chair and was shocked to find an orc woman in Benjamin's home. The man's face had gone through a range of expressions: surprise, fear, disgust, before Benjamin calmly explained that Mara was his betrothed and would be staying permanently. The neighbor had left in a huff, and Benjamin and Mara had waited nervously for repercussions. But when none came after several days, they began to relax. Either the man had decided to keep his mouth shut, or the other villagers did not care as much as they had feared. In truth, Benjamin lived far enough from the main village that his business was largely his own. The people who came for his carpentry work cared more about the quality of his craftsmanship than who he shared his home with. And Mara made sure to be polite and unobtrusive on the rare occasions when customers visited, not wanting to cause problems for Benjamin's livelihood. They decided to marry in early spring, with just the children as witnesses. Neither of them wanted a big ceremony, and finding someone willing to officiate the marriage of a human and an orc would have been difficult anyway. Instead, they held a simple hand-fasting ceremony in the clearing behind the cottage, with Dren holding the ribbon that bound their hands together and Kessa scattering early spring flowers at their feet. "I, Benjamin Driscoll, take you, Mara, to be my wife," Benjamin said, his voice strong and clear. "I promise to love you, honor you, and stand beside you through all the days of our lives. I promise to be a good father to Dren and Kessa, and to make our home a place of safety and joy." "I, Mara, take you, Benjamin Driscoll, to be my husband," Mara said, her voice thick with emotion. "I promise to love you, honor you, and stand beside you through all the days of our lives. I promise to build a life with you worthy of the kindness you have shown me and my children." They sealed their vows with a kiss as Kessa cheered and Dren smiled his quiet smile. And just like that, they were married, bound together by love and choice rather than obligation or tradition. That night, after the children were asleep, Benjamin carried Mara to the bed they would now share. Their lovemaking was tender and passionate, a physical expression of the emotional bond they had forged. Mara marveled at the gentleness in Benjamin's touch, the way he took his time exploring her body as if she were something precious. She had never experienced anything like it, and when they finally came together, it felt like the most natural thing in the world, two halves of a whole reuniting. Afterward, they lay tangled together under the blankets, Mara's head on Benjamin's chest and his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "I love you," she murmured, the words still feeling new and wonderful on her tongue. "I love you too," Benjamin replied, pressing a kiss to her hair. "My brave, beautiful wife." "Strange how life works," Mara mused. "A few months ago I was stealing eggs from your coop, desperate and afraid, and now I am here married to you, happier than I have ever been." "Best theft I ever experienced," Benjamin said with a chuckle. "You are never going to let me forget that, are you?" "Not a chance. I plan to tell our grandchildren about it someday." "Grandchildren," Mara repeated, the word filling her with warmth, a future stretching out before them full of possibility. "I like the sound of that. So do I." They drifted off to sleep wrapped in each other's arms, the cottage quiet around them except for the soft breathing of the children and the crackling of the dying fire. Spring brought new life to the homestead. The garden burst into bloom, The chickens started laying more eggs, and the whole world seemed to wake up from winter's slumber. Mara found that she was expecting a child, news that filled both her and Benjamin with joy. Dren and Kessa were excited about having a new sibling, though Kessa spent considerable time debating whether she wanted a brother or a sister. "Either one will be loved," Mara assured her daughter, "just like you and Dren." As her belly grew, Benjamin became even more protective, insisting she take on only light tasks and rest frequently. Mara found it both endearing and slightly annoying, but she could not deny that she appreciated his care. One warm afternoon in late spring, a group of orcs appeared at the edge of the property. Mara saw them from the garden and felt her blood run cold. She recognized her brother Thorak among them, along with several other warriors from the clan. "Benjamin," she called, trying to keep her voice steady. "We have visitors." Benjamin emerged from the workshop, saw the orcs, and immediately moved to stand beside Mara. Dren and Kessa, playing nearby, ran to their mother's side. Thorak approached slowly, his massive frame imposing even at a distance. He stopped a respectful distance away, his eyes taking in the scene his sister, visibly pregnant and standing beside a human man with her children pressed against her. "Sister," he said, his deep voice carrying across the yard, "I have come to speak with you." "Then speak," Mara said, lifting her chin. "But know that if you have come to cause trouble, you will find that I am not alone or defenseless." "I did not come for trouble," Thorak said, and Mara was surprised to hear a note of regret in his voice. "I came to apologize." Mara blinked in shock. "Apologize?" "Yes. After you left, the clan raided that human village you spoke against. It went badly. The humans were prepared and many of our warriors died. In the aftermath, people began to question my leadership. They remembered that you had warned against the attack, that you had argued for a different path." He paused, his jaw working as if the words were difficult. "I was a fool, Mara. I let pride and anger rule me instead of wisdom. I drove away my own sister because she dared to speak truth. The elders have voted me out as war chief. Kara leads the clan now, and she has made peace with the humans in the valley." "Peace," Mara repeated, hardly daring to believe it. "Yes. Trade, not raids. Cooperation, not conquest. It is a new path for the clan, and it is working. Our children are not going hungry. Our warriors are not dying in pointless battles. And I realized that you understood what I could not, that strength is not just about fighting, but about knowing when not to fight." Thorak looked at Benjamin, assessing him. "You are the human who gave my sister shelter." "I am," Benjamin said evenly, no fear in his voice despite being faced with a group of orc warriors. "You have my thanks," Thorak said, "and my respect. It takes courage to stand against prejudice, to offer kindness when hatred would be easier." "Your sister and her children have brought more to my life than I brought to theirs," Benjamin said. "I am the one who should be thankful." Thorak nodded slowly, then turned back to Mara. "I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not deserve it. But I wanted you to know that the clan would welcome you back if you wished to return, as a full member with honor." Mara looked at the brother who had cast her out, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. Then she looked at Benjamin, at their home, at the life they had built together. "I appreciate the offer," she said carefully. "And I forgive you, Thorak. You were doing what you thought was right, even if it was wrong. But I will not be returning to the clan. My life is here now with my husband and our children. This is where I belong." "I thought you might say that," Thorak said with a slight smile. "But the offer stands, should you ever change your mind. And know that you and your family are welcome to visit the clan anytime. Your children should know their heritage." "Thank you," Mara said, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. "That means more than you know." Thorak nodded to Benjamin and the children, then signaled to his warriors. As the group began to leave, he paused and looked back. "You were always the bravest of us, Mara. I see that now." "Be well, sister. Be well, brother." As the orcs disappeared into the forest, Mara felt Benjamin's arm come around her shoulders. She leaned into him, marveling at how much had changed. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. "Better than all right," she said. "That was closure I did not know I needed. Now I can move forward without any shadows from the past." "Good. Because I plan on spending the rest of my life making sure you have plenty of future to move forward into." Mara laughed and kissed him, ignoring Kessa's giggle behind them. The baby arrived in early autumn, a healthy boy with his mother's green skin and his father's gray-blue eyes. They named him Samuel, and he became the delight of the household. Dren proved to be a natural at helping with the baby, and Kessa appointed herself the official singer of lullabies, her sweet voice soothing little Samuel through fussy evenings. Benjamin expanded the cottage, adding another room for the children and making the main living space larger. Mara continued to help with the carpentry business, and together they began to build a reputation not just for quality work, but for the unique designs that came from combining Benjamin's technical skill with Mara's artistic eye. Word of their marriage had spread through the region, and while some people disapproved, many more were curious or supportive. They began to see other mixed couples appearing in the area, humans and orcs who had been hiding their relationships coming forward, emboldened by Benjamin and Mara's example. One day, a young orc woman and her human husband stopped by to commission a set of furniture for their new home. As Mara served them tea and discussed designs, the woman said shyly, "We heard about you and wanted to see for ourselves, to know that it was possible that we were not crazy for loving each other despite everything." "You are not crazy," Mara assured her. "Love is never crazy. Hard sometimes, yes. But never crazy." "Do people give you trouble?" the human husband asked Benjamin. "Some do," Benjamin admitted. "But most people care more about whether I can build them a good table than who I am married to. And the ones who do care, well, their opinions are not my concern." The couple left with plans for their furniture and something more valuable, hope that they too could build a life together. As the years passed, the homestead grew and thrived. Dren became a skilled carpenter in his own right, working alongside Benjamin and taking on more complex projects. Kessa showed an affinity for animals and began raising not just chickens but goats and sheep, turning a modest homestead into a small farm. Samuel grew into a bright, curious boy who seemed to inherit the best qualities of both his parents, his father's patience and his mother's strength. Mara and Benjamin added 2 more children to their family, daughters they named Hannah and Rose. The house was constantly full of noise and laughter, a far cry from the lonely cottage it had been when Mara first arrived. The village that had once been wary of Benjamin's orc wife gradually came to accept and even embrace the family. Mara's skill with medicine, learned from her mother long ago, proved invaluable to the community, and she became the person people sought out for healing. Benjamin's carpentry business flourished, and he took on additional apprentices from both human and orc backgrounds, teaching them that skill and character mattered more than species. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Benjamin surprised Mara by building her a beautiful wooden bench and placing it in the spot where they had first kissed by the chicken coop. "So you can sit here and remember the night you tried to steal my eggs," he said with a grin. Mara laughed and pulled him down beside her on the bench. "I have never regretted anything less in my life." "Me neither." They sat together, watching their children play in the yard. Dren was teaching Samuel how to carve, while Kessa supervised the younger girls as they collected eggs. It was a scene of domestic harmony that would have seemed impossible that desperate night 10 years ago. "You ever miss your old life?" Benjamin asked. "The clan, the life you knew before?" "Never," Mara said firmly. "That life was about survival, about constantly fighting just to exist. This life is about living, about love and family and building something that will outlast us. I would not trade this for anything. Even when things are hard, especially when things are hard, because we face those hard things together, and that makes all the difference." Benjamin took her hand, his thumb rubbing gently over her knuckles. "I love you, Mara Driscoll, more with each passing year." "I love you too, Benjamin. Thank you for seeing past what I was supposed to be and loving who I actually am. I could say the same to you." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over their land, over the life they had built from nothing but courage and kindness. The bench Benjamin had made would stand there for generations, a testament to the night an orc woman tried to steal eggs from a carpenter's coop, and found instead a home, a family, and a love that transcended every boundary the world tried to place between them. As darkness fell and they called the children inside for supper, Mara reflected on the strange and wonderful journey that had brought her here. She had set out that night to steal eggs to feed her children, driven by desperation and fear. She had found instead a man who saw her not as a monster or an enemy, but as a person worthy of kindness, respect, and love. From that single act of compassion, his invitation to bring her children inside from the cold, an entire life had grown. A family had been forged. And two people from worlds that were supposed to be forever separate had found in each other the missing piece that made them whole. Inside the cottage, Benjamin started a fire while Mara prepared supper. The children set the table, their cheerful banter filling the space with warmth. Samuel asked his father to tell the story of how his parents met, a tale the children never tired of hearing. "Well," Benjamin began, settling into his chair with a smile, "it all started one midnight when your mother tried to steal eggs from my chicken coop." Mara caught his eye across the room and smiled, her heart full to bursting with gratitude and love. This was her life now. This was her home. And every single day she thanked whatever fate or fortune had led her to Benjamin's door that cold autumn night. The story Benjamin told the children was one of courage and kindness, of second chances and new beginnings. But more than that, it was a story of love, the kind of love that builds bridges instead of walls, that chooses hope over fear, that believes in possibilities even when the whole world says they are impossible. And as Mara looked around at her family, at the life they had created together, she knew that this love was the greatest gift she had ever received. It was a gift that kept giving, day after day, year after year, growing and deepening with time. When supper was finished and the children were tucked into bed, Mara and Benjamin stood together on the porch, looking up at the stars. Benjamin wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned back into his embrace. "Happy anniversary, my love," he murmured against her ear. "Happy anniversary," she replied. "Here is to many more years together." "Many more years," he agreed. "And whatever challenges come, we will face them together." "Together," Mara echoed, and knew in the depths of her soul that it was true. They stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, two hearts beating as one under the vast canopy of stars. And in that moment, everything was perfect. Everything was right. Everything was exactly as it was meant to be. The carpenter and the orc woman who had tried to steal his eggs had built a life together that would endure long after they were gone. A legacy of love and courage that would inspire others to believe that even the most unlikely dreams can come true. And it all began with 6 stolen eggs and 3 simple words: "Bring your kids inside." Those words had changed everything. They had opened a door that neither of them had known existed, leading to a future neither had dared to imagine. They had been the beginning of something beautiful, something rare and precious in a world too often divided by fear and prejudice. As the years continued to roll by, the homestead became a beacon for others seeking acceptance and understanding. Mixed families from across the region would make pilgrimages to meet the couple who had dared to love across the boundaries of species, seeking advice and encouragement. Benjamin and Mara welcomed them all, sharing meals and stories, offering hope to those who needed it most. Dren eventually married a human woman from the village, a kind-hearted teacher who adored him and accepted his orcish heritage without reservation. Their wedding was the first openly mixed ceremony held in the village church, a milestone that brought tears of joy to Mara's eyes. Kessa fell in love with a traveling merchant, a half-orc whose father was human and mother was orc. They built a trading business together, traveling between human and orc settlements and helping to foster understanding and commerce between the two peoples. Samuel, Hannah, and Rose grew up knowing nothing but acceptance and love, their mixed heritage a source of pride rather than shame. They carried the lessons their parents had taught them that love transcends difference, that kindness is stronger than hatred, that family is defined not by blood, but by the bonds we choose to forge. Benjamin's hair turned gray, and Mara's green skin became lined with age, but their love never diminished. If anything, it grew stronger, deepened by years of shared joys and sorrows, triumphs and challenges. They were partners in the truest sense, each making the other better, stronger, more complete. On quiet evenings, they would still sit on the bench by the chicken coop, holding hands and remembering. They would talk about that first night, about the fear and desperation that had driven Mara to theft, about the compassion and courage that had led Benjamin to offer sanctuary instead of punishment. "You ever wonder what would have happened if I had not invited you in?" Benjamin asked one such evening. "Every day," Mara admitted, "and every day I am grateful that you did. You saved our lives, Benjamin, not just physically, but in every way that matters." "You saved mine too," he said. "I was existing, not living. Going through the motions but not really feeling anything. You brought me back to life, reminded me what it meant to love and be loved." "We saved each other then," Mara said softly, "as we have been doing ever since." "As we will continue to do," Benjamin agreed, "for as long as we both shall live." And they did. Through illness and health, through prosperity and hardship, through the joys of watching their children thrive and the sorrows that inevitably touch every life, Benjamin and Mara stood together. They were a testament to the power of love to overcome any obstacle, to bridge any divide, to heal any wound. When Benjamin finally passed, peacefully in his sleep at the age of 73, Mara held his hand and whispered words of love and gratitude. She mourned him deeply, as did their children and grandchildren and the entire community that had come to love and respect them both. But even in her grief, Mara could not regret a single moment of their life together. They had built something beautiful, something that would endure long after they were both gone. The cottage still stood, now home to Samuel and his family. The carpentry business continued, passed down through generations. And the story of how it all began with a desperate orc woman stealing eggs and a kind carpenter offering shelter was told and retold, becoming the stuff of local legend. Mara lived several more years after Benjamin's death, surrounded by her loving family. And when her own time came, she went peacefully, her last thoughts of the gray-blue eyes that had seen past her orcish exterior to the woman within, of the strong hands that had built not just furniture but a life and a legacy, of the gentle voice that had spoken 3 simple words that changed everything. Bring your kids inside. Those words echoed through the generations, a reminder that kindness and compassion can transform lives, that love knows no boundaries, that the most unlikely meetings can lead to the most extraordinary stories. And in a world still struggling with division and prejudice, the story of Benjamin and Mara became a beacon of hope, proof that a better future was possible if people were brave enough to reach across divides, to offer compassion instead of judgment, to choose love over fear. Their legacy lived on in their children and grandchildren, in the mixed families who followed their example, in the carpentry business that employed people of all backgrounds, in the small plot of land that had become a symbol of what was possible when 2 people dared to believe that love was stronger than hate. The bench Benjamin had built still stood by the chicken coop, weathered by years but sturdy still, a testament to the skill of the carpenter who had made it and the love that had inspired its creation. Couples would come from miles around to sit on that bench and make wishes for their own relationships, believing that the magic of Benjamin and Mara's love might bless their own. And perhaps it did. Because love, true love, has a power that extends beyond individual lives. It ripples outward, touching others, inspiring them, giving them courage to pursue their own happiness despite the obstacles in their path. Benjamin and Mara's story was one of many such ripples, a single pebble dropped in a pond that created waves of change spreading ever outward. It was a story of second chances and new beginnings, of finding home in the most unexpected places, of building family from choice rather than obligation. But most of all, it was a love story, pure and simple and profound. The story of a carpenter who chose kindness over fear, who saw a desperate mother trying to feed her children and offered not punishment but sanctuary. The story of an orc woman who dared to hope for a better life, who accepted an impossible offer from a stranger and found in him a partner, a lover, a soulmate. The story of 2 people from different worlds who built a bridge between them out of compassion and courage and stubborn, beautiful, transformative love. And it all began with 6 stolen eggs and 3 simple words that echoed through the ages. Bring your kids inside.